Have you ever laid in bed, your mind racing, and wondered, what would happen if you simply never slept? Not for a night or two, but for 30 days straight? What would break first? Your body or your mind? This isn't just a hypothetical question. It's the foundation of one of the most chilling horror stories ever to crawl out of the darkest corners of the internet. They call it the Russian sleep experiment. A piece of digital folklore so visceral, it feels less like a story and more like a warning. Picture this. 5 prisoners of war offered a devil's bargain. Take part in a medical study. Inhale an experimental gas that will keep you awake for 30 full days. 1 single month of relentless, unforgiving consciousness, and in exchange, your freedom, a clean slate. Why would anyone say no? The researchers developed the gas, and for the first 5 days, it was a dream. The subjects were euphoric, barely complaining. They could see the finish line. But after day 5, something shifted. The first cracks in their sanity began to appear. Severe paranoia set in. These 5 men, sole companions in this sterile hell, stopped talking to each other. Instead, they started whispering secrets into the microphones, each one trying to betray the others to win the favor of the men in white coats. Their salvation was becoming their damnation. By day 9, one of them started screaming. Not a shout of anger, but a raw, primal, animal shriek that lasted for 3 hours, until the sound itself tore his vocal cords to shreds. By the halfway mark, the observation windows were smeared thick with human waste. The researchers, desperate to regain control, issued an order over the intercom. Comply. Lie on the floor, and one of you will be freed immediately. A single, rasping voice answered from the chamber. A voice that no longer sounded human. It said, "We no longer want to be freed." When they finally opened the door, they found a scene from a nightmare. The subjects had torn into their own flesh, consuming it. They were patched up, saved by the very science that had ruined them. But they begged, they pleaded, they demanded to be put back in the chamber. They craved more of that gas. The scientists asked them why. Why would you want the thing that destroyed you? Their answer was a chilling mantra. I must remain awake. It's a terrifying story of addiction and the fragility of the human mind. But what if I told you this experiment never really ended? It just evolved. It found a new, modern laboratory. And it's broadcasting live right now on your phone. Think about it. The original experiment was about a gas, a chemical compound forcing the body past its natural limits. Today, the stimulant isn't a gas. It's a feed. It's a stream. It's the endless, bottomless scroll of information, validation, and outrage piped directly into our brains. The laboratory isn't a sealed room in a secret Soviet bunker. It's everywhere. It's in our homes, our pockets, our hands. The whitecoats aren't scientists in a sterile lab. They are engineers in Silicon Valley, algorithm architects, content creators, influencers, all peddling their own unique strain of that same addictive gas. And we are the new subjects. And we volunteered. We signed the consent form with a click-through terms of service agreement we didn't read. We accepted the bargain. Give us your attention, your wakefulness, your precious hours of sleep, and in return, we will give you connection. We will give you community. We will give you freedom from boredom, forever. And for the first few days, the first few years, it felt like a dream, didn't it? Euphoric, the world at our fingertips, old friends rediscovered, a global village, a finish line of infinite knowledge and endless entertainment seemed just within reach. We were the connected generation. We could see it all. But then, the cracks began to appear. The first symptom, just like in the story, was paranoia. Not the clinical kind, perhaps, but a social one. We stopped talking to each other and started whispering into our own microphones, into the comments sections, into the DMIs, into the curated stories we present to the world. We began to perform for the favor of the unseen observers. We curated our lives not for our own joy, but for the approval of the algorithm, for the likes and shares that feel like a form of freedom, of validation. Our salvation was becoming our damnation. Then came the screaming. Not from one person, but from the entire digital chorus. A raw, primal, endless shriek of hot takes and outrage porn, of performative anger and tribal loyalty. We've screamed until our collective vocal cords are shredded, leaving us with only hoarse, rasping echoes of genuine human emotion. We smear the observation windows of our own lives with the waste of our discourse, painting over the glass with so much vitriol and misinformation that we can barely see each other anymore. And the men in the white coats, the modern researchers, they try to regain control. They issue their commands over the intercom. Engage with this post, share this outrage, watch this video. Comply with the trend, and you will be freed. You will be validated. You will be seen. They dangle the same promise of freedom, the same clean slate of social acceptance. And what is our answer? A single, collective rasping voice that no longer sounds entirely human. We say, we no longer want to be freed. We don't log off. We don't put the phone down. We demand more. We crave the very thing that frays our nerves, that shatters our attention spans, that replaces our deep sleep with a shallow, flickering consciousness. We have torn into our own flesh. We have commodified our private lives, consumed our own dignity, and offered up our most vulnerable moments for content. And when we feel broken by it, when we feel the anxiety and the depression setting in from the constant, unforgiving wakefulness of being always online, always available, always performing, what do? We don't ask to be let out. We beg for more. We seek out new apps, new platforms, new, stronger strains of the gas. We patch ourselves up with a quick dopamine fix, a new notification, a new follower, and dive right back in. And if someone were to ask us why we would choose the thing that exhausts us, that empties us out, what would our answer be? It would be the same chilling mantra, whispered from a million screens at once. I must remain awake. I must be connected. I must not miss out. I must be informed. I must be seen. I must remain awake. The horror of the Russian sleep experiment was its isolation. 5 men in a room, cut off from the world. The horror of the modern experiment is its totality. There is no outside. There is no control group. The entire world is in the chamber now, and the door is locked from the inside. We are both the subjects and the researchers, performing the experiment on ourselves and each other in a brutal, never-ending cycle of stimulation and exhaustion. The gas has changed. The laboratory has expanded to engulf the planet. But the result, the terrifying, inevitable result, feels exactly the same. A slow, steady unraveling of the self, a willing sacrifice of sanity and rest on the altar of perpetual wakefulness. We are all inhaling the gas. We are all whispering into the microphones. And we are all, slowly but surely, beginning to scream. The new laboratory doesn't have stainless steel walls or observation windows. It has neon lights, a tiny bed, and a live stream counter. Welcome to the Disturbed Sleep live streams, a niche, bizarre corner of TikTok that feels less like entertainment and more like a social experiment gone horribly wrong. Imagine a channel, live 24/7. The camera is fixed on a small, bunker-like room. The lighting is always wrong, a sickly, artificial glow from LED strips. And on a small bed in the center, a person lies perfectly still, eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. But then, a cartoonish balloon pops into frame. How? A donation. It's all automated. The question hangs in the air, unanswered. You, the viewer, become the scientist. You hold the stimulus. For a few dollars, you can pop a balloon, blast an air horn, disrupt the false peace. You get your own little Russian sleep experiment. You get to torture these live streamers for digital coins. This is TikTok's no man's land, a digital hinterland where reality has gone soft at the edges. Sometimes you swipe into something gentle, almost mundane. Someone packaging orders, scooping crystals, harvesting pearls from oysters. It's hypnotic. But then, you swipe again, and the world tilts. There are people pretending to be robots, promising to slap themselves for a fee. A man sobs uncontrollably as he builds a house of cards, begging viewers not to donate. Which, of course, makes everyone donate faster, just to watch the tower and the man fall apart. Strangers offer to tell you the fate of your entire life for a small galaxy donation of just $9. It is a place that doesn't just attract insanity, it actively breeds it. And recently, a new subject has become its most popular and perverse attraction. Her name is Ash Trevino, a 36-year-old woman from Texas who claims her record for a single 2.5-hour live stream is, her content isn't stimulating, it's not a talent show. She just sits at her makeup desk, a phone on speaker, talking to her boyfriend. You're a fly on the wall, listening in on the most intimate and often disturbing conversations. One of her many boyfriends. This one is named Francisco. She's giggly girlish, her voice a high-pitched flutter. She holds the phone up to the camera for her 2,300 viewers. You just hear his voice, deep and slightly muffled. I'm just saying. I'm not going to share advice. If you want to take the time of your day to actually get to know me, you would. Ashley Coos. No, I don't need them to like you. I don't need them to like you, sir. Oh my God, guys, he's innocent, and I don't care what y'all say. But her viewers are turning on her. The chat scrolls, angry and confused. Why is this funny? Why are you laughing? Her voice will harden, the giggle gone, and her answer will send thousands down a rabbit hole so dark it leads to a blood-soaked pavement and 2 dead girls. The chat floods with questions. Who is innocent? What does he need to be innocent of? The comments are no longer playful. They are pointed, accusatory. They are detectives on a digital beat, and they've just found their first clue. Ashley's demeanor shifts. The performative sweetness evaporates, replaced by a cold, defiant glare into the camera. She sees the questions. She reads them aloud, her voice now flat, devoid of its earlier flutter. Y'all want to know so bad. She says, a challenge in her tone. Y'all sitting in my live, judging me, judging him. You don't know a thing. You don't know what we've been through. You don't know what people are capable of. The statement hangs there, a piece of raw meat thrown to a pack of hungry dogs. It's not an explanation. It's a dare. The viewers, once passive observers eavesdropping on a strange relationship, are now active participants in a mystery. They have been invited, no, provoked, to dig. And dig they do. The internet sleuthing machinery grinds into motion, fueled by curiosity and a deep, unsettling sense that something is very wrong here. They begin with Francisco. Ashley has mentioned his name. His voice is on tape. It doesn't take long. Digital footprints are surprisingly deep, even for those who try to stay in the shadows. They find a Francisco connected to Ashley. And they find a news story, a local Texas tragedy from a few years back. A hit and run. Two young sisters walking home from a friend's house. A car that never stopped. A vehicle description that matched a car Francisco was known to drive at the time. An ongoing cold case that had faded from the headlines, but never from the hearts of a grieving family. The pieces click together with a terrifying, logical certainty. The chat's accusations are no longer random. They are specific. They are brutal. Did he kill those girls? Is that why he's innocent? Do the police know? Ashley goes live again. The makeup desk is there, but the giggle is gone for good. Her face is drawn. Her eyes are hard. She is under siege, and she knows it. She doesn't address the rumors directly. Instead, she speaks in circles, in a language of implied threats and veiled references. She talks about powerful people and things that happen for a reason. She speaks of protection, of loyalty. She is no longer just a woman on a stream. She is a fortress, and her viewers are the army at her gates. She says something that chills the blood of every person listening. She leans into the camera, her voice a low, conspiratorial whisper that cuts through the digital noise. Some people, she says, they just disappear. They ask too many questions about things that don't concern them. And poof, the internet forgets. Their families forget. Their families forget. It's a threat. A blatant, horrifying threat made to thousands of people simultaneously. The experiment has reached a new fever-pitched climax. The subjects are not just screaming into the void anymore. They are threatening the scientists. The observed are threatening the observers. The line between the digital world and the real world doesn't just blur, it shatters. Viewers begin contacting the Texas Police Department responsible for the cold case. Tips flood in. Names are named. Ashley's live streams, once a bizarre form of entertainment, are now entered into evidence as a digital crime scene. A place where a possible confession was teased and a possible accomplice was paraded before an audience of thousands. The story spirals outward, consuming everything in its path. News outlets pick it up. TikTok sleuths reopen cold case. Streamer's boyfriend linked to unsolved hit and run. The laboratory walls have been blown wide open. The sterile environment is contaminated with the messy, brutal reality of a real-world tragedy. The gas of perpetual engagement has led to this, a vortex of accusation, investigation, and fear, all playing out on a global stage. And through it all, Ashley continues to stream. The donations increase. The viewer count skyrockets into the tens of thousands. She is monetizing the speculation. She is profiting from the nightmare. The audience is trapped, complicit, horrified yet unable to look away. They funded this. They paid for the balloons and the air horns, and now they are paying for the front row seat to a real-time unraveling of a possible crime. We are all deep in the experiment now, and the door is sealed shut. We are the researchers, the subjects, the witnesses, and the jury. We inhale the gas of drama and tragedy, and we whisper our findings into the microphones of the comment sections, desperate for answers, for justice, or perhaps just for the next hit of the story. We must remain awake. We cannot miss a second of what happens next. We didn't know then what we know now. We didn't know that sleep was a battlefield, that dreams were arenas for propaganda, and that the soft darkness of night was a space for minds to be hijacked. But we will know now. We will know that when it comes to our stories, the real monsters don't just lurk in closets or under beds. Sometimes they crawl out onto our screens and introduce themselves with a smile. This is what happened to Elizabeth Hores and Ivana Cortez, two teenagers murdered in a hail of bullets. Their stories are gone. Their voices are silenced. But ours are not. We are here tonight to tell their stories so they will not be forgotten. So the city will remember that these were two bright lights snuffed out too soon, two potential futures stolen in a senseless act of violence. We will make sure that the whole city sleeps tonight, because if we let the darkness consume us, the monsters win. And in the battle for our minds, we must make sure the monsters lose. Our story begins in a city where sleep is a luxury. And as the sun sets over Seattle, a hush falls across the concrete canyons. The silence is broken only by the distant wail of sirens and the rhythmic pulse of bass from idling cars. It is a symphony of the streets, and the conductor is the city's anxiety. Sleep is a distant thought. For many, it never comes at all. 24-hour diners are packed. Street lamps are halos around hurried figures. And in apartments, curtains are drawn against a backdrop of flickering blue light. The city that never sleeps is full of ghosts, shadows that glide through neon-lit alleys, vanishing before the morning light. They are dreamers, chasing nights that never end. Some seek solace in the rhythm of the streets, finding comfort in the constant hum of activity. Others lose themselves in the flashing lights of all-night diners, seeking refuge in the mundane rituals of coffee and conversation. But as the night deepens, the shadows grow longer and the city's heart beats faster. The quiet cost of living in a city that never sleeps is fear. Fear clings to the corners of buildings, wraps around parked cars, and echoes in the empty spaces between people. It's a tangible presence felt in the grip of a handshake or the glance of a passerby. There is always the sense that someone is watching, and the darkness is a breeding ground for secrets. The city keeps its secrets close, buried beneath layers of neon and noise. Beneath the towering glass skyscrapers, hidden behind the steel bars of nightclubs, and whispered in the hushed tones of late-night conversations. These secrets, like ghosts, walk the city's streets, shaping its shadows and haunting its dreams. If you listen closely, you can hear them in the sigh of a tired police officer, the hesitant step of a lone pedestrian, or the tremor in the voice of someone sharing a story in the dim glow of a street lamp. Secrets bind the city together, creating a shared understanding of the risks and realities of living in a place where the sun never truly sets. In a city where sleep is a choice, the consequences of wakefulness are stark. For some, it's the grind under their fingernails, the hollow ache in their stomachs, or the weariness in their eyes that tells the story of sleepless nights spent chasing dreams that turn to dust. For others, it's the weight of unspoken words, the burden of secrets kept, and the shadows that follow them everywhere. Sleep is the great equalizer, the universal experience that binds us all, regardless of where we live. It's the moment when we lay our burdens down, shed our masks, and confront the raw, unfiltered reality of existence. Yet the privilege of sleep is not one that everyone can afford. In a society that glorifies hustle, ambition, and relentless productivity, sleep becomes a luxury, a sacrifice at the altar of progress. As we navigate the labyrinthine streets of Seattle, we encounter individuals who've chosen to sacrifice sleep, each with their own unique story. There's the burned-out entrepreneur who trades sleep for success, the anxious student who sacrifices rest for grades, and the overworked single parent who chooses to prioritize their child's needs over their own. Each of them is a testament to the human cost of our collective obsession with productivity. Their silent struggles serve as a stark reminder that in our relentless pursuit of success, we must not forget the fundamental importance of rest. And then there is Ash Trevino, a young woman caught in the web of her own making. She's an influencer, a purveyor of lifestyle content, and a purveyor of misinformation. She's fallen head over heels for a convicted felon. Her live streams are a cacophony of eye-catching chaos. They're like car crashes in slow motion. You can't look away, even though you want to. And what does she do? She monetizes misery. She creates a tragedy and sells it to her viewers. It's grotesque. It's disturbing. It's the spectacle of exploitation. And it's happening right under our noses. The worst part is that she preys on vulnerable minds. She targets those who are lost, confused, and searching for a way to navigate the complexities of love. She offers them a false sense of security and companionship, luring them into a world of make-believe where the line between fantasy and reality is blurred beyond recognition. And her followers, many of whom are impressionable young adults, fall for it. They're drawn into her vortex of half-truths and carefully curated lies. They buy her merchandise. They donate to her cause, and they become unwitting participants in her twisted game. They think they're supporting a loving relationship, but they're really feeding the monster under the bed. As we watch her live streams, we're horrified yet intrigued. We're repulsed by the spectacle, yet we can't tear our eyes away. We know we should walk away, but we feel a morbid curiosity that compels us to stay. It's as if we're witnessing a train wreck in slow motion, knowing full well that the impending crash is inevitable, yet unable to avert our gaze. And then we see it. A flicker of something in Ash's eyes, a brief flash of vulnerability that reveals the emptiness within. It's a glimpse into the abyss of her soul, a reminder that behind the manicured facade of online personas, there may be a chilling hollowness. The sight unsettles us, shakes us to our core. And in that moment, we catch a glimpse of the true cost of chasing online fame. The tragedy of Elizabeth Hors and Ivana Cortez serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of life. Their deaths shook the city to its core, exposing the raw nerve of vulnerability that unites us all. In the face of such profound loss, we are confronted with the preciousness of each passing moment, the brevity of time, and the enduring power of empathy. Their memory becomes a catalyst for change, prompting us to reevaluate our priorities, to cherish our loved ones more deeply, and to advocate for a safer, more compassionate world. The impact of their story resonates far beyond the courtroom, forcing us to confront the darkness that lurks within our society and within ourselves. In the aftermath of the verdict, Seattle finds itself grappling with a profound sense of grief and disillusionment. The city, known for its innovation and progressive ideals, is confronted with the harsh realities of systemic failures. The justice system, designed to uphold fairness and equality, is scrutinized for its shortcomings. Questions arise about the adequacy of mental health resources and the effectiveness of community outreach programs. Citizens take to the streets, their voices echoing the collective cry for change. They demand a re-evaluation of policies, tougher sentencing, and a renewed commitment to fostering empathy and understanding. The city is divided, with many calling for swift and severe punishment, while others advocate for rehabilitation and restorative justice. Amidst the clamor for change, a counter-movement emerges. It champions compassion and understanding, calling for a deeper examination of the societal factors that contribute to such violence. They demand a shift in perspective, urging the community to address the root causes of the problem rather than resorting to knee-jerk reactions. The debate rages on, dividing the city, pitting neighbor against neighbor, and forcing families to choose sides. The very fabric of Seattle's identity is strained as it grapples with these contrasting viewpoints. It is a city in pain, searching for answers in the wake of a tragedy that has shaken it to its core. The verdict against Ash Trevino is not just a legal pronouncement. It is a resounding indictment of the corrosive influence of unchecked online behavior. Her actions, both online and offline, have been laid bare, exposing the dark underbelly of a digital age, where empathy has been sacrificed at the altar of engagement and truth has become optional. Her journey from social media darling to convicted accomplice reflects the blurred lines between virtual and real life. The internet, once a boundless realm of possibility, is now a battleground where misinformation thrives, where echo chambers amplify biases, and where virtual mobs form and dissipate at the click of a button. Ash's story serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the responsibility that comes with digital citizenship. It is a stark reminder that in the online world, words do indeed have consequences, and that the pursuit of notoriety can lead down a perilous path. As the gavel strikes, ending the trial, it also marks a pivotal moment in our collective digital evolution. The verdict is a call to action, urging us to reevaluate our relationship with online influencers, to critically examine the narratives we consume, and to reaffirm our commitment to empathy, understanding, and the relentless pursuit of truth. So, what is the basis for Ash's public defense of Francisco? To understand the controversy, we have to look at the case that made him infamous. According to court documents, significant forensic and physical evidence was presented that linked Francisco directly to the scene of a serious crime. At his apartment, authorities also found several items that further connected him to the case. For many observers, the most unsettling evidence came from his phone. It contained a video he recorded of himself at the victim's memorial. In the clip, he made statements that appeared to celebrate his gang affiliation in connection with the incident. In another message exchange concerning one of the young victims, his reply was seen by many as deeply callous. This is the individual at the center of Ash Trevino's advocacy. When her own viewers express sympathy for the victims, her on-stream reaction has not been supportive. Her response has been a major source of the public backlash against her. But this case is just one part of a larger pattern that has drawn online scrutiny. Ash fits a profile that some have called an inmate hopper, someone who builds a brand around relationships with incarcerated men. This lifestyle often involves her two young daughters. She has posted photos of them during prison visits, which has led to intense debate and concern among her audience. And while she projects this persona, her own live streams have sparked a completely different controversy, one centered on her home life. While Ash dedicates her platform to advocating for inmates, viewers have grown increasingly alarmed about the welfare of her own children. These concerns stem from numerous on-air moments where her daughters have been heard asking for basic necessities. Observers noted the girls appeared to be sleeping on an air mattress in their mother's room. The controversy grew as viewers contrasted this with Ash's frequent display of high-end designer purchases on her social media. The online discussion quickly shifted from the legal cases she was involved in to the immediate well-being of her children. The central point of contention became the visible disconnect between her spending habits and the living conditions she was broadcasting to the world. This led to a new kind of online movement. Viewers began documenting clips from her streams and archiving posts as evidence of their concerns. The comment sections of her videos became flooded with questions about her children. Eventually, organized groups of viewers began reporting what they were seeing to Child Protective Services in her area. Ash's response to this public pressure was defiance. She used her live streams to deny the claims, stating that her children's situation was their own choice and that she was the victim of an online harassment campaign. She even brought her daughters on camera to state that they were happy and well cared for, a moment many viewers found unconvincing and deeply uncomfortable. The situation highlights a difficult dynamic on social media. Ash's content, no matter how controversial, is driven by engagement. The more people watch, comment, and donate, whether out of support or outrage, the more the platform rewards her. This creates a cycle where controversy itself becomes a product. It leaves the audience in a difficult position, questioning their own role in the story. Are they simply witnessing a public downfall, or does their viewership inadvertently fuel it? The line has become incredibly blurry, and it underscores a larger, more troubling question about the real-world consequences of online entertainment. The evidence for these concerns isn't hidden. It's the backdrop to her content. Her live streams have become a real-time chronicle of a household that many viewers describe as chaotic. The girls are frequently audible in the background, their requests for simple things becoming a constant refrain during their mother's broadcasts. They ask for food, for help with their schoolwork, for a proper bed. These requests are often met with on-air irritation and dismissal, as Ash tells them to be quiet because she is live. The audience has become a witness to a different kind of troubling story, one unfolding not in the past, but in real time on their screens. In comments and in moments caught on the microphone, the girls have indicated they sleep on a single air mattress on the floor of their mother's room. Viewers have noted that there seem to be no beds for them in the house, and their own rooms are apparently empty. They have spoken about being hungry and surviving on snacks. All the while, Ash's spending is on full display. She shows off new Louis Vuitton and Gucci handbags items that cost more than a family's grocery budget for months. The math is simple, and for her critics, it is damning. The price of one handbag could furnish her daughter's rooms. But her focus seems to be on her online brand and the attention it brings. This stark contrast became the focal point for a new online investigation. The same communities that analyzed Francisco's case turned their full attention to Ash's. They began compiling clips from her streams, archiving her posts, and collecting audio of her daughter's pleas. They created timelines and entire forums dedicated to documenting the situation inside the Trevino home. The conversation in her comments section shifted. Once focused on Francisco's case, it was now dominated by a new urgent mission, the well-being of her children. Where are their beds? Viewers asked. Why are they hungry? Feed your kids, Ash. The tone changed from morbid curiosity to genuine alarm. Viewers began reporting what they were seeing to Child Protective Services in her area, providing links and timestamps as evidence. Ash's response was defiance. Her live streams became defensive as she addressed the accusations head-on. She claimed the air mattress was the girls' preference and that they were just picky eaters. She framed the narrative as an attack on her family by internet trolls. In this way, the concerns over her children's welfare became just another storyline to be debated and monetized. She even brought the girls on camera to defend her. On a live stream, she prompted them to tell the audience that they were happy and loved. It was a moment that many viewers found deeply unsettling, as the girls appeared uncomfortable while reciting lines that seemed fed to them by their mother. This coerced display of normalcy only amplified the concerns. The situation has become a toxic feedback loop. Ash's online performance is fueled by donations and engagement, regardless of whether that engagement is positive or negative. And the audience, whether supportive or critical, is part of the machine. By watching, commenting, and donating, we all play a role. We click, we watch, and we drive the algorithm that rewards this spectacle. We are watching a tragedy unfold in real time, caught in the difficult question of our own role. Are we simply witnesses? Or are we participants? The line has all but vanished. The story is no longer just about a crime that happened years ago. It's about the pleas of a teenage girl, off camera asking for dinner while her mother engages with her online world, her priorities on full display for all to see. Let's step inside the Trevino household. Not through the curated Instagram posts, but through the unedited, unfiltered lens of her own live streams. This is where the story shifts from bizarre to deeply concerning. Ashley brags about her wealth constantly. She does hauls, showing off $800 receipts from grocery trips that consist entirely of hot Cheetos, bean dip, and sour candy. Not a single fresh fruit or vegetable in sight. She unboxes Balenciaga slippers, aggressively showing the tag to the camera. "These are not from Temu, trust me," she sneers. She buys the newest iPhone in pink. She purchases a Louis Vuitton duffel bag, an actual giant travel bag, for $3,000 and uses it as a purse, sparking a TikTok trend where people mock her by carrying suitcases on their arms. She brags about dropping $327 at the Cheesecake Factory for 2 people. $3,000 is like dirt to me, she says, waving a hand. But then the camera pans, accidentally or during a moment of boasting, and it catches her daughter's room. Netizens quickly notice something horrifying. In the room shared by her 16-year-old and 13-year-old daughters sits a single solitary air mattress on the floor. Just one, for both of them. When confronted, Ashley's excuses are flimsy. She claims they don't stay with her much. They're usually with her parents. She says she is just not sure what kind of bed to get them, bunk beds or one to share, so she just doesn't get one. This from a woman who makes an estimated $1,000 to $2,000 a day in donations. The neglect isn't just material. It's emotional, physical. In one live stream, her daughter is throwing up in the hallway, calling for her mom. Ashley's first instinct isn't concern. It's accusation. "You're lying," she says, before turning back to the camera and resuming her dance. "Mom, I threw up." "Why are you dancing?" the girl pleads. In another clip, her daughter has a bad burn. Instead of taking her to urgent care, Ashley gets on the phone with a friend. What can I put on it? The friend insists she needs to go to a doctor. Ashley's response? Then I'm going to have to get a freaking Uber. The implication is clear. The inconvenience outweighs the child's pain. She flies to Disneyland by herself. When called out, she claims her kids don't like to fly, a lie her own daughter later debunks on her own TikTok account. For Thanksgiving, she drives her sick children 8 hours to El Paso to stay with a woman she calls Auntie, a stranger she met on TikTok. She leaves the kids alone in an Airbnb with instructions to order DoorDash while she goes out to get drunk at the bars. And during this trip, she will pick a fight with another creator, dox her location, and end up in a hair-pulling brawl in a bar, all while live streaming, and all while her sick children watch the chaos unfold from their lonely Airbnb. This El Paso trip becomes a microcosm of Ashley's entire world, a perfect storm of neglect, narcissism, and performative chaos. The trip was never for the children. It was for content. From the moment they arrive, the streams are constant. The girls are visibly unwell, coughing and lethargic, bundled in blankets in the back seat of the car during the long drive. Their needs are an interruption to Ashley's narrative. She films them when they are vulnerable, mocking their sickness, turning their discomfort into a punchline for her viewers. The auntie they are staying with is another TikTok personality, a woman whose entire relationship with Ashley exists through the screen. The children are left in the care of a stranger while Ashley goes out to explore the El Paso nightlife. The streams from the bars are a frenetic mess of flashing lights, loud music, and slurred speech. Ashley is the center of her own universe, buying rounds, dancing on tables, demanding attention. And then the fight. It starts, as these things often do, with a perceived slight online. Another female creator makes a comment about Ashley. It's minor, but for Ashley, it's a declaration of war. The live stream becomes a weapon. She announces the woman's name. She doxes the bar they are in, inviting her followers to come and see, to witness the showdown. The camera becomes a shaky, first-person view of a predator hunting its prey. She finds the woman. The audio is a cacophony of shouted insults, the camera jostling as Ashley gets in her face. The other woman is trying to de-escalate, to walk away, but Ashley is relentless, fueled by the adrenaline of performance and the cheers of her live audience. She pushes. She shoves. And then it happens, a lunge, a scream, and the camera tumbles, showing a blur of floor tiles and kicking feet as a full-blown brawl erupts. Security swarms. The stream cuts out, but the damage is done. Ashley has live-streamed her own assault arrest. And throughout the entire spectacle, a single, haunting thought persists for the viewers watching at home. Where are the girls? The answer is just as devastating. They are alone. Miles from home, sick, in a strange rental house, watching their mother's life publicly implode in real time on the very same platform they use. When Ashley returns to the Airbnb, the stream resumes. She is disheveled, her hair a mess, but she is triumphant. She recounts the fight like a war story, playing the victim and the hero simultaneously. She shows off a scratch on her arm like a medal of honor. The girls are in the background, silent witnesses to their mother's breakdown. They don't ask if she's okay. They don't rush to her side. They have seen this before. This is just another night. This is normal. This is the true horror of the modern sleep experiment. It's not the screaming in a sealed chamber. It's the quiet, resigned acceptance in a child's eyes. It's the normalization of the absurd. It's the complete inversion of care. A mother should be a sanctuary for her children. Ashley Trevino is a circus, and her children are trapped in the front row, watching the main act self-destruct night after night. Their basic needs for safety, for stability, for love, going unmet, because the show must always go on. The audience is left with a sickening feeling. We are no longer just watching a train wreck. We are watching a derailment that is about to careen off a bridge, and two innocent children are locked in the caboose. We have become the researchers who have let the experiment spiral out of control, who have watched the subjects tear themselves apart, and now we are frantically pressing buttons on a control panel that has long since stopped working. The gas is everywhere. There is no more oxygen left in the room, and the only sound is the faint, desperate cough of a child begging for someone, anyone, to turn it off. The El Paso trip becomes a legendary disaster in the Ash Trevino lore, a perfect microcosm of her chaotic and negligent world. After ditching her sick kids at the Airbnb, she goes out with her new auntie. While live streaming from a bar, she starts mocking another TikTok creator, taunting her to pull up and fight. She even gives out the specific bar's name, essentially sending out a digital invitation for drama. She's a 36-year-old mother of two, acting like a reckless teenager, and, unsurprisingly, the creator takes the invitation. She shows up. The situation escalates quickly into a mediocre hair-pulling fight before everyone is kicked out. Ashley later live streams from the car, complaining that her hair felt like grass and that the woman must have taken her bobby pin for an autograph or something. But the person driving the car is the auntie, who viewers clearly saw drinking at the bar. Now, Ashley is live streaming a drunk driver with her children waiting at the end of this dangerous ride. When they finally get back to the auntie's house, the chaos continues. The auntie's ex-boyfriend shows up, and a massive physical fight breaks out. Instead of protecting her children or turning off the stream, Ashley keeps broadcasting. She eventually calls the police, but she does it on live stream, loudly reciting the auntie's full home address to thousands of viewers, completely doxing the location where her children are staying. Through all of this, the fighting, the screaming, the police, her younger daughter, E, is visibly sick and anxious. She tells Ashley she saw the video of the bar fight. She's scared. Ashley's response: to keep streaming and to start chowing down on a box of fries while the auntie, who was just in a physical altercation, dry heaves in the background. A viewer comments, "And back to the food we go." This incident showcases every failing, prioritizing drama over safety, neglecting her children's emotional and physical well-being, and exposing them to dangerous, violent situations. But the most alarming aspect of Ashley's life isn't the chaos she creates outside. It's the toxicity she cultivates inside her own home, directly aimed at her daughters. She engages in constant emotional abuse on stream. She calls her daughters slurs. She smirks at them on FaceTime, scoffing at their lips, their noses, their appearance. Your nose is not perfect. She snaps at one daughter who was feeling confident. In a sickening clip, she admits on stream that she used to yank her eldest daughter, H, by the hair and throw her to the ground out of sheer jealousy. Her reason? I felt like he loved her more than he loved me. She was jealous of the attention her own husband gave to their child. This admission, more than anything, paints a picture of a woman who sees her daughters not as children to protect, but as rivals to compete with. And this twisted dynamic is about to explode on the biggest platform of her life. The breaking point doesn't come from an outside critic or a concerned viewer. It comes from within. It comes from her eldest daughter, H, who has spent a lifetime in the shadow of her mother's narcissism. Tired of the lies, the neglect, and the public humiliation, H decides to fight back using the only language her mother understands: content. She creates her own TikTok account. At first, her videos are subtle. She posts clips of herself enjoying a home-cooked meal at her grandmother's house, a quiet rebuke to the diet of junk food in her mother's care. She posts videos of her own neatly made bed in her grandmother's spare room, a silent answer to the question of the air mattress. But then she gets bolder. She begins to directly address the rumors and the questions that plague her mother's comment section. She goes live. And for the first time, the world hears the story not from Ashley's performative, manipulative perspective, but from the raw, unfiltered voice of the child who lived it. She confirms everything. She confirms they sleep on an air mattress. She confirms they are often hungry. She confirms that the trips to Disneyland were solo missions for Ashley, that they were left behind. She talks about the constant fear, the walking on eggshells, the humiliation of having her most vulnerable moments broadcast for profit. She speaks with a maturity far beyond her 16 years, a maturity forged in the fire of survival. There is no anger in her voice at first, just a profound, weary sadness, a resignation to the fact that her childhood has been a public spectacle. But as the questions pour in, as the support from strangers floods her chat, a new emotion emerges: defiance. She is asked about Francisco. She doesn't defend him. She doesn't call him innocent. She simply says, "I don't know him. I don't want to know him." It is a damning statement. It completely dismantles the fantasy family narrative Ashley has been selling. The unbreakable bond is revealed to be a fiction. The daughters want no part of their mother's prison romance. Ashley's response to her daughter's rebellion is not one of remorse or self-reflection. It is one of pure, unadulterated rage. She sees H's TikTok live not as a cry for help, but as a challenge to her authority, a threat to her brand. She goes live herself on a competing stream, and she unleashes a torrent of verbal abuse aimed directly at her own child. She calls H a liar, a clout chaser. She mocks her appearance, her intelligence, her character. She threatens to cut her off, to take away her phone, to punish her for daring to speak. The live stream becomes a public execution of their relationship. Ashley, the mother, is publicly eviscerating her teenage daughter for the crime of telling the truth. The audience watches, horrified, as the final fragile barrier between performance and reality is vaporized. This is no longer a show. This is a family being torn apart on Main for everyone to see. The two live streams run concurrently, a split screen of tragedy. On one side, a young girl, brave and broken, finally speaking her truth. On the other, a woman consumed by her own image, attacking the very child she should be protecting. It is the climax of the experiment. This is what happens when the human mind is deprived of its essential nutrients: privacy, love, and rest. It turns on itself. It consumes its own. The subjects in the chamber are no longer just tearing at their own flesh. They are tearing at each other, and we are all watching wide awake, unable to look away, complicit in the terror, Destruction of everything we are supposed to hold sacred. The scream has finally been given a voice, and it is asking for a mother who will never come. The netizen outrage against Ash Trevino reaches a fever pitch. Thousands are mass reporting her to TikTok and compiling evidence to send to Child Protective Services in Texas. They point to the air mattress, the nutritional neglect, the emotional abuse, and the dangerous environments she places her children in. In the midst of this, Ashley and her daughters are invited to appear on a popular podcast. The host is Camille, a controversial figure herself from a content house known for its adult-oriented creators. It's a bizarre choice for a first podcast appearance for two minor girls, but for Ashley, it's clout. The interview is explosive from the start. Camille asks the questions the internet has been screaming. She asks the eldest daughter, H, if TikTok has changed their lives for the better or worse. H's answer is heartbreakingly honest. I feel like I would rather go back to my old life. We have money, but I don't like being online publicly. That's when I was more confident. I didn't care how I looked, and now since I am public, I care more about how I look and how I go out and stuff. Ashley, sitting beside her, seems to stare her down. When Camille asks if Ashley has ever been jealous of her own daughter, H brings up the viral clip where Ashley admitted to pulling her hair out of jealousy over her father's affection. Ashley's response is a masterclass in deflection. She doesn't deny it. Instead, she launches into a proud mom speech that rings completely hollow. I'm not jealous of her. I'm blessed to be able to give her the life that I've always wanted as a little girl. It's a non-answer that ignores the pain she just admitted to causing. But the most damning moment comes when Camille, seemingly off the cuff, asks a simple question. Do the kids have beds? H doesn't even hesitate. No. The air is sucked out of the room. The host is visibly horrified. Here is a woman who flaunts Louis Vuitton and Balenciaga, who brags about making $112,000 in 2 hours, and her teenage daughters do not have beds. Camille immediately promises to buy them beds right then and there. Ashley tries to laugh it off, making excuses about not knowing what style to buy and being too famous to go to a store. The excuses crumble under the weight of the simple, undeniable truth. The podcast is titled The Worst Mom on TikTok. It will garner millions of views. But for Ashley, the worst is yet to come. Because this deep dive into her world is about to connect the dots between her neglectful present and a terrifying pattern that stretches back years, involving a parade of predators that she has welcomed into her children's lives. The podcast appearance, intended by Ashley to rehabilitate her image, instead becomes the key that unlocks a much darker chapter of her story. Online investigators, armed with H's confirmation of their worst suspicions, begin digging deeper, looking further back than the air mattress, further back than Francisco. They begin to ask a more fundamental question. Is this neglect a recent development, or is it part of a long-standing pattern? What they uncover is a history so disturbing it redefines the meaning of negligence. They find court records, old social media posts from forgotten accounts, and testimonies from people from Ashley's past who have been silent until now. They piece together a timeline of the men Ashley has brought into her home, into her children's lives. The list is long, and it is horrifying. It includes not just Francisco, the alleged murderer, but a catalog of convicted felons, abusers, and registered sex offenders. Ashley didn't just date these men. She moved them in. She allowed them to play father figure to her young daughters. She created a revolving door of dangerous strangers, each one vetted not for his character, but for his notoriety, for the clout he could provide. One name emerges from the past with terrifying clarity. A man Ashley was involved with years prior, when her daughters were much younger. This man was a convicted sex offender on the registry for crimes against a child. Online sleuths find photographs of this man holding Ashley's daughters on his lap, smiling for the camera. They find posts where Ashley refers to him as daddy to the girls. They find public records showing he lived at their address. The evidence is undeniable. Ashley knowingly and willingly brought a registered sex offender into her home and gave him unfettered access to her small children. The outrage that followed the air mattress revelation now seems quaint, almost innocent in comparison to this new, gut-wrenching horror. But the story doesn't end there. The investigators find another man, another boyfriend from the past. This one was physically abusive. There are police reports, calls for domestic disturbances at the house where the children were present. In one incident, Ashley was reportedly assaulted by this man while her children were in the next room. Yet she stayed with him. She continued the relationship, again prioritizing her connection to a dangerous man over the safety and well-being of her daughters. The pattern is clear, and it is chilling. Ashley Trevino doesn't just have a type, she has a pathology. She is drawn to men who are dangerous, who are infamous, who are broken. She collects them like trophies, and she displays them to the world as proof of her own desirability, her own power. And in the process, she has repeatedly, knowingly, placed her own children in the path of predators and abusers. The air mattress, the junk food, the emotional abuse, these are not isolated failures of motherhood. They are symptoms of a much deeper, more profound sickness. They are the visible evidence of a woman who sees her children not as beings to protect, but as accessories to her own narrative, props in her performance of a life that is as chaotic as it is empty. The podcast Confession About the Beds was the key that unlocked this Pandora's box. It gave legitimacy to the online investigators, proving that the wildest rumors about Ashley were, in fact, true. It empowered others from her past to come forward, to share their stories, to add their pieces to the puzzle. The picture that emerges is no longer just of a neglectful mother, but of a woman who has systematically and repeatedly failed to provide the most basic requirement of parenthood, a safe environment. The laboratory of the internet has conducted its experiment, and it has arrived at a devastating conclusion. The gas of perpetual engagement, of clout chasing, of performance, does not just erode sanity. It erodes humanity itself. It replaces the primal instinct to protect one's young with a desperate addictive need for external validation, no matter the cost. Ashley Trevino is the ultimate subject, the one who has inhaled the deepest and for the longest time. And her children are the control group, the undeniable proof of the damage it causes. The screams from the Russian sleep chamber have faded, replaced by the silent, terrified testimony of two girls who never had a choice, who were born into the experiment and who are still waiting for someone to finally turn off the gas. Francisco is just the tip of a very deep, very dark iceberg. To understand Ash Trevino, you have to understand her type, her obsession. She is an inmate hopper, and her roster of relationships reads like a guest list for a serial killer convention. Before Francisco, there was Jessie. She live-streamed picking him up from jail, decorating a hotel room with rose petals for him. On stream, he looked utterly disinterested, and later claimed he had to put a blanket over her head to be intimate with her. Their relationship lasted 8 days. She later claimed she had an abortion because she didn't want to have his baby, after initially telling people she'd had a miscarriage from stress. Before Jesse, there was Noy Trevino, the source of her current last name. She married him while he was in prison for stabbing a man outside a nightclub. She is still legally married to him, refusing to pay the divorce fee, even as she calls other men her husband. But the most revealing relationship is with Isaiah Gonzalez. Ashley married Isaiah in 2019 while he was serving a 45-year sentence. She documented it all on Instagram, posting pictures of herself holding his photo, calling him daddy to her daughters, and writing hashtags like #MyLifeIsBehindThoseWalls. She even posted a tribute to him, listing all the certificates he'd earned in prison, portraying him as a changed man ready to contribute to society. But what did Isaiah do to get 45 years? When he was 15 years old, Isaiah and his friends meticulously planned the robbery of a gas station manager named Muhammad, a father of 7. They knew his route to the bank. They ambushed him, robbed him, and then one of them shot him dead. They dragged his body into the woods and set his car on fire. Isaiah took his share of the money, $1,000, and he and his friends bragged about the murder. This is the man Ashley brought her young daughters to visit. This is the man she told them to call Daddy. And her type isn't limited to behind bars. She also pursues much younger, problematic men on the outside. She developed an obsession with a 19-year-old TikToker named Santos after her own daughter confessed to having a crush on him. Ashley then began publicly pursuing him, humiliating her daughter in the process. She went on live streams with him, talking about breastfeeding him, asking him if her no-no smelled, a crude term she uses for her private parts. She even flashed him her chest on a live stream, a clip that quickly went viral and further cemented her reputation for predatory behavior. She surrounds herself and her children with violent criminals and unstable individuals, creating a perpetual vortex of danger. But to truly grasp the depth of her pathology, we need to go back to the beginning, to the one decent man in this story, and what happened when he was tragically removed from the picture. Long before the inmate hopping, before the TikTok fame and the Louis Vuitton bags, there was a different Ashley, or at least the facade of one. She was married to a man named Chris, the father of her 2 daughters. By all accounts from those who knew them, Chris was a good man, a hard worker, a devoted father. He provided a stable home. He was the anchor that kept the family from drifting into the chaos that would later define them. Tragically, Chris passed away. The circumstances of his death are a private matter for the family, but its impact is the public key to understanding everything that came after. His death was the catalyst, the moment the ship lost its anchor and began to spin uncontrollably into the storm. With Chris gone, the structure he provided vanished. The need for stability was replaced by a gaping void, a desperate hunger for attention and validation that could never be filled. This is where the pattern begins. Ashley didn't turn to family, to therapy, to community. She turned to the most intense, immediate form of validation she could find, the dangerous allure of notorious men. A stable, kind man like Chris could no longer compete with the memory of what she had lost. But a violent criminal, a man serving a life sentence, a teenager on the internet, these men offered something else. They offered drama. They offered a story. They offered a perverse form of control. She could be their savior, their connection to the outside world. She could craft a narrative of being a loyal ride or die, a narrative that was far more compelling to her than the mundane reality of being a single mother. Her pursuit of these men is not about love. It is about filling the silence left by a good man's absence with the loudest, most shocking noise she can find. It is a continuous attempt to outrun her grief, to overwhelm it with chaos. Every inmate she marries, every dangerous boyfriend she parades on livestream, is a testament to a pain she refuses to face. And in this frantic, desperate search for a new anchor in the most unstable of places, she completely forgot about her daughters. They were not just grieving the loss of their father. They were losing their mother to a waking nightmare. Their need for stability, for love, for a mother's comfort in their grief, was sacrificed on the altar of their mother's addiction to chaos. The air mattress is more than a piece of furniture. It is a symbol. It is the proof that there is no foundation left in that house. The man who helped build it is gone, and the woman left behind would rather spend her money on a designer bag, a symbol of a new, shallow identity, than on a bed for her children, a symbol of the stable home they once had and desperately need again. The Russian sleep experiment was about a gas that deprived the mind of rest. Ashley Trevino's life is the modern equivalent. She is depriving herself and her children of peace, of safety, of the essential rest that comes from a loving and secure environment. She is addicted to the gas of drama, and she is forcing her daughters to inhale it with her. They are all wide awake in a nightmare of her making a nightmare that began the day. A good man died, and a mother decided that the best way to honor his memory was to destroy everything he worked to build. The experiment continues, and the subjects are breaking, and the only thing left to see is what finally, if anything, will make it stop. Amidst this parade of inmates and internet trolls, there is one man who stands in stark contrast. The father of Ashley's children, her high school sweetheart. By all accounts, he was a dedicated father who worked hard, paid child support faithfully, and was deeply involved in his daughters' lives until Ashley made it increasingly difficult for him. Then, tragedy struck. 2 years ago, the girl's father passed away after a battle with leukemia. For H&E, this was a devastating loss. For Ashley, it was another plot point in her story. She did not go to the funeral. It's speculated she wasn't welcome. Instead, she took to TikTok. She announced she might take a mental health break. That break lasted 1 day. She came back to streaming, but now she had a new angle, the grieving ex-wife. Her comments were grotesquely self-centered. "That could have been me," she said about his death. "He didn't have to go. That could have been me." She spoke about his passing as if it were a personal inconvenience, a narrative twist for her character. "Everything happens for a reason," she stated, a phrase that feels like a slap in the face when referring to a man's death from cancer. She even tried to twist her daughter's grief into a story about herself. "It's opened up my eyes now that my little girls need me," she said, as if she hadn't previously been aware of that fact. Her daughters, watching these streams, repeatedly begged her to stop talking about their father. They were grieving, and she was turning their pain into content. This event revealed Ashley's core motivation, a bottomless need for attention. She cries real tears on stream, not when her children are sick or hurting, but when a top donor deserts her for another creator's live stream. "This is how I support my kids," she wailed, sobbing genuine tears. "I have nothing but this." The irony is staggering. She has everything except the ability to be a mother. Her life is a performance. She listens to sad songs on Spotify and stares off into the distance, playing the main character. She's been accused of sending herself flowers and acting surprised on stream. She eats chips by throwing them back like she's taking a shot. Every moment is curated for engagement, for sympathy, for donations. But the performance is cracking. The netizens are closing in. And Ashley's response isn't remorse. It's defiance. She brags about having over 20 CPS cases dismissed. She claims her children don't live with her full time anymore, not because of her neglect, but because of the internet trolls. "Y'all are going to get my parents in trouble," she says, shifting the blame. And the potential consequences onto her own parents, who now primarily care for the girls. She is a master of evasion, slipping through every crack in the system. But the most terrifying question remains. What happens when a person like this faces no consequences? What happens to the children trapped in her orbit when the world just keeps watching? The answer is unfolding in real time. The lack of tangible, legal consequences has only emboldened her, reinforcing her belief that she is untouchable, that the rules of society simply do not apply to her. She has learned to weaponize the very system designed to protect her children. When a new CPS report is filed, she doesn't panic. She goes live. She turns the investigation into content. She portrays herself as the victim of a relentless online hate mob, a strong mother being persecuted for her lifestyle choices. She knows the language to use, the performative tears to cry, the right way to present a temporarily cleaned-up house for a scheduled visit. She has become a master of navigating the bureaucracy of care, not to improve her children's lives, but to continue her own exploitation of them without interference. This evasion of consequence has a chilling effect on everyone watching. It sends a message that the digital world and the real world are separate, that you can livestream evidence of your own neglect and face no real-world repercussions. It tells her audience that morality is optional, that empathy is a weakness, and that the only currency that matters is engagement. The experiment is proving a horrifying hypothesis that in the modern age, a sufficiently charismatic personality can commodify their own pathology and build an empire on the suffering of others, all while the structures of society stand by, unable or unwilling to intervene. For her daughters, the lack of consequences is a life sentence. They are old enough now to understand that their mother chooses this. They see that she faces no punishment for the empty rooms, the missed meals, the dangerous men, the public humiliation. They are learning a brutal lesson about the world, that those who are supposed to love you the most can hurt you the most, and that no one is coming to save you. The constant cycle of being briefly removed from her care, only to be returned after she performs just enough compliance, is a special kind of torture. It teaches them that hope is a setup for disappointment, that stability is an illusion, and that their well-being will always be secondary to their mother's addiction to the spotlight. The final, most sinister consequence of this impunity is the blueprint it creates. Ashley Trevino is not an anomaly. She is a pioneer. She is demonstrating a new model for exploitation, one that is being watched and studied by countless others. She has proven that there is an audience for everything, that shock and outrage are just as valuable as admiration, and that the line between fame and infamy has been erased. She is creating a legion of imitators, a new generation of content creators who see that morality is a barrier to success and that the fastest way to viral fame is to sacrifice your dignity, your privacy, and even your children on the altar of the algorithm. The Russian sleep experiment ended when the researchers finally opened the door to the chamber. In our modern experiment, no one is coming to open the door. The subjects are willingly locking themselves in, and the researchers us. The audience are pumping the gas faster and faster, demanding more drama, more chaos, more pain. We are all wide awake, watching the world burn for our entertainment, and the scream we hear is no longer coming from a sealed lab in Russia. It's the silent, desperate scream of two girls living in a house with no beds, in a world with no rules, wondering if anyone will ever turn off the camera. The experiment is over. We lost, and the children are paying the price. After the devastating podcast appearance, the backlash against Ash Trevino is immense. But instead of introspection, Ashley goes on the offensive. She is furious with the host, Camille. She claims that had she known the podcast would be titled The Worst Mom on TikTok, she never would have done it. She alleges Camille made $60,000 from the episode and says she should have been paid for her participation. The irony is palpable. Ashley, who makes a living selling every aspect of her life online, is upset that someone else profited from the truth. She deflects every criticism. I'm always going to be the villain in everybody's story. She whines, I could sit here and go to church every day, and you will still see me the same way. A bad mom, alcoholic, whatever. It's a performance of persecution, completely ignoring the fact that people are calling her a bad mom because of her documented actions, not because of a misunderstanding. Her daughters, humiliated and angry by the podcast, reportedly block her on TikTok. Ashley's explanation? They're just acting out because they're grieving their father. It's never her fault. The blame always lies elsewhere. With the internet, with the podcast host, with her late husband, with her children's grief. Meanwhile, the digital manhunt continues. Netizens dig up more past lies and bizarre behavior. They find old clips of her from when she worked at a dentist's office. She was fired in December 2024 after netizens sent her bosses clips of her racist rants. On a live stream, she said she quit because the new owners were Indian. And she stated, I'm not working under no Indians. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Another clip surfaces of a live stream where a bug, what looks like a bed bug or a cockroach, crawls out from her pillowcase. She notices it, acts strangely nonchalant, and quickly tries to hide it from the camera instead of freaking out like a normal person would. Her explanation later: it was a beetle. She is constantly surrounded by the evidence of her own dysfunction, yet she consistently spins it, lies about it, or laughs it off. She exists in a reality of her own making, and she drags her children into it every single day. The most chilling comment, the one that hangs over this entire story, is one left by a viewer. All the CPS cases for Gabriel Fernandez were closed. Let that sink in. For those who don't know, Gabriel Fernandez was a young boy who was systematically tortured and murdered by his mother and her boyfriend. Despite numerous reports to CPS, the system failed him utterly. That comment underscores the terrifying reality at the heart of this saga. We are all watching a tragedy unfold in real time, reporting it, documenting it, and yet she remains untouched. The live stream continues. The donations still come in, and the girls are still trapped. Which leads us to the final, most important question. What happens next? The future for Ashley Trevino and her daughters is not written in a courtroom or a CPS report. It is written in the comments section, in the viewer counts, in the fluctuating algorithms of social media platforms. The immediate aftermath of the podcast sees a strange and unsettling split in the digital universe. On one side, the outrage grows louder, more organized. Viewers compile master documents of her neglect, time-stamped and cross-referenced, ready to be sent to any authority who will listen. They bombard the comment sections of local Texas news stations, demanding coverage. They become digital activists, armed with screen recordings and a desperate need for justice. But on the other side, something else happens. Ashley's notoriety skyrockets. Her follower count balloons. For every person repulsed by her, there is another drawn to the spectacle. The controversy is itself a form of engagement. The algorithm, that blind, immoral machine, doesn't distinguish between positive and negative attention. It only sees attention. And so, her live streams now regularly pull in thousands of viewers, all tuning in to see what she will do next. The donations, while now often accompanied by hateful comments, continue to pour in. She has successfully monetized the outrage. She has turned the world's disgust into her payday. This financial reinforcement is the most dangerous outcome. It proves her right. It validates her entire worldview. Why change? Why seek help? Why be a better mother when being a terrible one is so incredibly profitable? The money allows her to hire a lawyer to fight back against the CPS cases with more sophistication. It allows her to create a bubble of financial independence that further insulates her from reality and from the need to change. For her daughters, the future is a question of escape. They are getting older. They are finding their own voices on their own TikTok accounts. The eldest, H, has already shown a courage and clarity that her mother utterly lacks. The most likely path is one of gradual emancipation. They will spend more and more time with their grandparents until one day they simply stop coming back. They will use the very platform their mother exploited to build their own lives away from her, to tell their own stories on their own terms. Their trauma will be a part of them forever, but it will not define them. They are the survivors of the experiment, and their recovery will be their ultimate rebellion. But the story of Ashley Trevino is bigger than one family. It is a cautionary tale for our time. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about our own role. We report her, we despise her, but we also watch her. Our outrage fuels her fame. Our clicks fund her neglect. We are the ones who made "The Worst Mom on TikTok" a profitable title. The system may eventually catch up. A CPS case might finally stick. A court might finally see through the performance and order a permanent change. But that is not the real lesson here. The real lesson is that we have built a world where such a person can not only exist, but thrive. We have created a new laboratory, one without walls or ethics, where the human mind is subjected to the constant stimulus of performance and validation, and the subjects are breaking in plain sight. The Russian sleep experiment asked what would happen if you never slept. Our modern experiment asks what would happen if you were always watched, always performing, always commodifying every moment of your existence. Ashley Trevino is the answer. She is the warning. She is the product of a world that values engagement over empathy, clout over care, and content over children. The live stream will eventually end, but the conditions that created it are still broadcasting 24/7 into billions of phones around the world. And until we change the channel, the experiment is far from over. So where does this leave us? We have a woman, Ash Trevino, who has built an empire of dysfunction on the back of TikTok donations. She has dated and married convicted murderers and violent criminals, brought her young daughters to visit these men in prison, emotionally and physically neglected her children, failing to provide basic necessities like nutritious food and proper beds, exposed them to dangerous situations, violence, and inappropriate sexual content, subjected them to constant emotional abuse and humiliation on live stream, exploited the death of their father for sympathy and content, and yet she remains free. Her children are still in her orbit, primarily living with her elderly parents now, but still subjected to her chaotic influence. CPS cases have been opened and dismissed. She boasts about this, wearing it as a badge of honor. Why? How does someone like this fall through the cracks? The answer is as complex as it is frustrating. The system is overburdened. Proof of immediate, physical danger is often needed for swift action. Ashley provides just enough a roof, some food, enrolled in school to check the basic boxes, while the profound emotional neglect and psychological abuse happen in plain sight on the internet. A realm CPS is often ill-equipped to handle. Furthermore, Ashley is a master manipulator. She performs for the camera. She knows what to say to deflect and minimize. She cries, she plays the victim. She points the finger at everyone else. She creates so much chaos that it's hard for any outside authority to pinpoint a single actionable offense amidst the noise. And perhaps most damningly, she has an enabler, her audience. The people who donate the galaxies, who join her lives, who battle her, who keep her relevant and funded. Every dollar sent is a vote of support. Every viewer count is validation. As long as the money flows, the show will go on. The audience plays the role of the researchers in the Russian sleep experiment, pumping the gas into the chamber, watching the subjects tear themselves apart, and wondering why they won't just go to sleep. The real experiment is no longer about sleep. It's a question of our own humanity. How long will we watch? At what point does morbid curiosity become complicity? For her daughters, H and E, the future is uncertain. They are old enough to have their own TikTok accounts to see what the world says about their mother, and to understand the truth of their own situation. The eldest daughter's heartfelt plea on the podcast, "I would rather go back to my old life," is a cry for help that echoes far beyond the studio. They are living in a modern-day version of the experiment chamber, and the gas is the relentless glow of their mother's phone screen. Their only hope is that someone, somewhere, finally finds a way to shut it off. But is there anyone who can? The answer lies not in a single hero, but in a collective shift. The first and most difficult step is for the audience to truly disengage. This doesn't mean mass reporting her, which only drives up her engagement metrics and makes her more valuable to the algorithm. It means a conscious, widespread decision to stop feeding the beast, to stop watching, to let the live stream count dwindle to zero. This is the only language the platform and Ashley truly understand. Without an audience, the performance has no purpose. Without donations, the financial incentive vanishes. This is the equivalent of cutting off the gas supply in the experiment. It is the only way to force a different outcome. The second front is legal, but it requires a new approach. The evidence compiled by netizens, the hours of screen recordings, the podcast testimony, this needs to be organized and presented, not just to CPS, but to a family court judge in the context of a custody battle initiated by the girl's grandparents. The argument must be framed not around isolated incidents of neglect, but around a consistent, documented pattern of psychological abuse and the intentional creation of an unsafe environment. The goal would be to make the current living arrangement with the grandparents permanent and legally binding, stripping Ashley of her custodial rights and mandating supervised visitation, if any at all. This is a steep, uphill battle, but the mountain of public evidence provides a foundation that is rarely available in such cases. The third, and perhaps most important, element is the daughters themselves. They are not helpless victims. They are resilient survivors finding their voice. The eldest daughter's decision to speak out on her own TikTok was an act of incredible bravery. Supporting them means amplifying their truth, not through drama and outrage, but through quiet, sustained encouragement. It means respecting their boundaries as they navigate this impossible situation. Their path to healing will be long, and it will require therapy and stability, but they have already shown the strength to begin that journey. Ultimately, the story of Ash Trevino is a mirror held up to our digital age. It reflects our obsession with spectacle, our desensitization to suffering, and the dangerous gap between our online and real-world morals. We clicked, we watched, we judged, and in doing so, we became part of the machine that empowered her. The question is no longer what is wrong with Ash Trevino. The question is what our continued consumption of her story says about us. The chamber has no walls. We are all inside it. And the only way out is to finally, collectively, choose to look away. To prioritize the real-life safety of two children over the digital drama of their mother. To turn off the screen, and in doing so, finally turn off the gas. The experiment doesn't end when the subjects break. It ends when the researchers finally decide to stop watching. The story of Ash Trevino isn't ending. As of this recording, she is almost certainly live on TikTok on her newest account, talking to a new inmate, or a new young boy, or bragging about a new designer purchase. The cycle continues. The Russian sleep experiment ended with a question. Why would you want the thing that destroyed you? The subjects answered, I must remain awake. For Ashley, the question is similar. Why would you choose this life, this chaos, this infamy? And her answer is the same. She must remain online. She must remain the center of attention. The validation from strangers, the flow of money, the performance of it all, it's her gas. And she is addicted to it. The tragedy is that her children are forced to inhale it too. This saga forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the world we've built online. We have created platforms where the most aberrant behavior is not just tolerated, but rewarded. Where neglect is monetized. Where empathy is stifled by curiosity. The Ash Trevino story is an extreme case, but it's a symptom of a larger disease. It's the logical endpoint of a culture that values engagement over everything else, over truth, over dignity, over the safety of children. So, what are your thoughts? Is Ash Trevino a master manipulator, a product of her environment, or a deeply unwell woman who needs serious intervention? Should the platforms be held accountable for allowing this to be broadcast? Is there anything that can actually be done? The experiment is ongoing. We are all witnesses. And the most chilling part of the original Russian sleep experiment story was the final line from the subjects. They didn't want to be freed. The haunting question we are left with is, after a lifetime in that chamber, surrounded by that gas, would her children even know what freedom looks like? Perhaps the most terrifying possibility is that they wouldn't. Freedom, for them, might look like silence. It might feel like boredom. The constant adrenaline rush of chaos, the dramatic swings between love bombing and verbal abuse, the ever-present hum of the live stream, this is their normal. A calm, stable life with regular meals and a quiet bedtime might feel alien, unsettling, even empty. The gas of drama doesn't just addict the person pumping it. It rewires the brains of everyone forced to breathe it. The subjects in the original experiment tore at their own flesh. The victims in this modern experiment might find themselves, on some unconscious level, missing the chaos. Because chaos is the only language their mother ever truly spoke. It is the perverse comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar is a nightmare. This is the ultimate success of the experiment. It doesn't just break you, it reprograms you to love the breaking. It makes you crave the very thing that is killing you. Ashley has built a chamber for her daughters, and she has made them dependent on its toxic atmosphere. Their fight for freedom won't just be a fight to leave their mother. It will be an internal fight against the parts of themselves that have been shaped by her, the parts that might still equate drama with love and stability with neglect. The question of what to do remains. Holding platforms accountable is a nebulous goal. They operate in a gray area, protected by laws that shield them from the content users post. They can ban accounts, but Ashley has proven adept at creating new ones, a digital hydra where cutting off one head only makes two more grow. The real change must come from us, the audience. We must redefine what we value. We must stop rewarding atrocity with attention. We must become more than just witnesses. We must become a conscience, but this is difficult. It requires a collective will that the internet, in its current form, seems to lack. We are trapped in our own feedback loop, addicted to the spectacle, pumping the gas for others because we too are afraid of the silence. We are all in the chamber now. The original experiment was contained. Ours is viral. The story of Ash Trevino is not a story with an ending. It is a diagnosis. It is the fever dream of a sick society, a warning flare shot into the sky, illuminating a landscape where everything is for sale and nothing is sacred. It shows us the darkest potential of a world without boundaries, without consequences, without a shared sense of reality. The children, H and E, are the canaries in this coal mine. Their fate is not sealed. They still have a chance. But their chance depends on a world that is willing to look at itself in the mirror that Ashley holds up, and to finally, truly, be horrified by what it sees. The experiment continues. The gas is pumping. And the only way out is to wake up.